Earlier this month, I entered the GMTK 2025 Game Jam and I turned Minesweeper into Balatro. To give a bit of background, a Game Jam is an event where a bunch of game developers all make games which are then rated and ranked, and the GMTK Game Jam is famous for breaking the world record number of participants every single year it's ran, and sure enough, this year was no exception. The jam was set to start on Wednesday at 6 PM. In the week running up, I binge watched all the YouTube videos about the previous years and I devised my own golden formula for creating the perfect jam game. The perfect jam game is simple, short and sweet. Simple because it must be easy to pick up and play. Even the successful puzzle games from previous years have well crafted difficulty ramps to ensure the player will quickly get what the game's whole deal is. They're short because in a normal game being shallow is bad, but in a game jam no one cares about being shallow. But the smartest developers take full advantage of this. And finally, sweet, because all the best games are dripping in a little something known as juice. You don't need a deep well of content, or even the most creative idea, even to get a high creativity ranking, which I guess because creativity is quite subjective. With this in mind, I eagerly awaited the premiere of the theme on the GMTK YouTube channel, and the theme for 2025 was Loop. I started brainstorming ideas and writing them into a mind map. I came up with tons of ideas like a time loop, looping around the sides of the screen, a game where your previous actions are loop, a game about a loop shape such as a donut, roller coasters, train tracks. I had ideas to make the loop the economy or a 9-to-5 job or the water cycle. I had so many ideas that I really struggled to pick just one. The main issues were that I wanted to pick something creative, but for the more creative ideas I came up with, I struggled to envision how I could ever make a fun game out of them. I tried to plan a farming game where the loop is you start off with one seed, grow more crops, which are then harvested for even more seeds in a repeating cycle, but I wasn't sure how to make the waiting that comes with any farming game fun, so I swapped to another idea. A puzzle game like Snake, but you have to eat your own tail. But after thinking about it for a while, I felt like the idea was too obvious for the theme, and the game seemed way too similar to Snakebird to be creative, so I considered a different idea, a donut cooking roguelike like the Papa's games. But the more I developed this idea, the less confident I felt in it. Plenty of my ideas for games felt good, but I felt like I had to pick one that was great, and I was just struggling to do this. I spiraled into madness like this for 6 hours, struggling to commit to an idea. Eventually, I stepped away for a bit and collected my thoughts. I thought that since I hadn't found an idea which stood out as brilliant, I would just pick something that I would have the most fun making, so I decided to do an idea for a game I've had for a few months now. I was going to make a Minesweeper Balatro. This was the gist of my idea. The player has a deck of Minesweeper tiles. Each tile can be separated into 3 parts, their base, their contents, and their cover. When a board is generated, empty tiles are temporarily filled with numbers. For scoring, you want to reward the player for clearing as much of the board as possible, so for each tile revealed they get 1 point of reward. We also want removing mines from your deck and trivialising the game to not be the optimal strategy, so I added risk point which are earned from revealing numbers and earned proportional to the number revealed. The final score is then calculated from risk times reward. I was unsure how to make mines work, so I originally made them just give negative risk, and later I also added a HP system in. Instead of blinds, we would just go level, shop, looping back and forth between them. That's the theme of the jam. For upgrades, there would be different tiles, the ability to level up numbers, I wasn't really sure if this was a good idea but I did it anyway, and brooms, which work like jokers, but are brooms because Minesweeper. This idea violated the simple and short parts of the golden formula, and the massive scope of it leaves a lot less time to focus on making it sweet, but at this point, I didn't really care. I loved this idea, so I was going to do it whether or not it was a good fit for a game jam, and so the next day, I began turning Minesweeper into Balatro. I knew from my past game jam experiences that planning well would be critical to getting so much content done in only 4 days, especially with how much time I had already lost. I carefully listed out everything I wanted to finish in the 4 days and organised them by priority in a way I thought was appropriate. It wasn't an exact science, since it's hard to plan if it's going to be worth improving something important or adding something new, but I came up with a plan anyway, and I started working. I yoinked some code from my past projects and then began by making Minesweeper work. I created modular tile objects which make up the deck and can then be generated into a game. The size of the board will stay as close to 16:9 aspect ratio as possible so it doesn't look weird. I made the tiles revealable, flaggable, and I even added encoding, which is where you click a number, and if it has the right number of flags around it, then all of the tiles around it are revealed in one big go. Next up was scoring. I wanted to add juice to this eventually, but to start it just had to work. I made a little green square fly tile to tile, scoring it as it goes. Risk and reward get displayed at the bottom of the screen, and then scoring pops up when it's done. I finished day 2 by drawing up some sprites for window panes and buttons, and then adding in scenes for the shop, game over, main menu, but I didn't add anything to them except for the buttons to proceed to the next screen. At the end of day 2, I could play Minesweeper and loop through a bunch of empty screens. Day 3 started off with a bit of a problem. After doing some work, my text started going crazy at random times. I had added a hover effect to the text to add a bit of juice to the UI, but to do this I wrote my own shader, which is an area I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing in. What's strange is that looking at my shader code, I don't even see how this glitch could happen. This function here is what offsets the text, and it can't possibly go above 0.023. There's no way anything to be able to hover with more amplitude than that, but yet it does. After testing, I came to the conclusion that the source of the issue must be something to do with the way Love2D handles textures for fonts, but I've never looked into this before, and I didn't want to now. My solution to this glitch was to just reload the fonts at the start of every scene. It is incredibly inefficient, but guarantees the glitch will go away when you proceed. With the stun lock costing me about 2 hours of my time, I focused my attention on building the shop. I started by adding 4 special tiles. We have marked covers, which are covers that are marked. We have ghostly covers, which are see-through. We have gilded bases, which give money when revealed, and we have cracked bases, which double the risk a tile gives. With these, and the default tile pieces I was already using, I had enough variety to implement a basic version of the shop. 6 tiles are drawn randomly based on set weight. You can hover over them and read a little description, and you can press buy to buy them. These hover descriptions aren't the best. Ideally, I would have some background to make them easier to read, but thanks to the font they were readable enough, so I made do with them as they were. The shop was looking quite bare still, so I added in an upgrade button. It takes you to a screen where you pick one of 3 upgrades from the pool, like leveling up a number, turning tiles in your deck special, increasing your match HP, or reducing the cost of a reroll. After testing a bit, I felt like having level ups in the upgrades felt quite odd, as whenever I bought an upgrade, I always wanted one or the other. So I separate them into 2 different pools you can buy from. So at the end of day 3, I now had a working Minesweeper and a shop with tiles, upgrades, and level up. If you haven't already, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. I'd like to keep making games and videos like this, and knowing that people enjoy them is probably the biggest motivator to keep at it, so if you're enjoying this video, like and subscribe. Anyway, back to Swope. On day 4, I knew I had to dedicate some time to adding sound. So I grabbed some royalty-free music off perrytune.com, and I made some sound effects myself with Audacity. Some of these turned out better than others, but making them was good practice nonetheless. I added in a tutorial because I knew it would be important. It wasn't anything very fancy, the game is frozen, dimmed, and the player just clicks through a bunch of text prompts. With this tutorial done, I added in the main menu to access it from. I threw together a logo with some silly sunglasses that bob up and down to add a bit of juice, and I added in an after round summary, which lets you know how much money you've earned from beating a level. Next up, I actually added re-rolling into the shop properly, and I put some more tiles in the game. Moles give you lots of risk if they're still buried at the end, but minus risk if you reveal them. Dice have a 1 in 6 chance of giving you a reward, and a 1 in 6 chance of giving you gold. Maps will reveal a saved tile when they are revealed. Sonars will mark mines around them when they're revealed. And X2s will double the risk and reward given by adjacent tiles, even the bad ones. Now, if you look at Balatro, one of the first things you'll notice is the hypnotizing, juicy background, so I wanted to do something similar in Swope. Now, I could just copy paste Balatro's background into my game, but that would be illegal, and I don't want to live in a jail cell, so I decided to make my own background. For some reason, I recently watched an update overview for Pico 8, despite never using that engine at all, but this overview highlighted how the new inverted circle fill can be used to make a tunnel effect. Inverted circle fill is basically drawing a filled in circle. Instead of filling in the circle bit, you fill in the surrounding area, essentially just filling the screen with a colour and then punching a circular hole in it. After fiddling with this for a bit, I built a background that uses my own implementation of inverted circle fill to create the tunnel effect, and it looked really cool. Next up, I knew I needed to add a deck view. Not a very interesting mechanic, but it's an important one. I also added a little compendium at the top of the deck view screen, so you can check what each tile does at any point. After finishing this, I wanted to add more juice to scoring, as it felt like the most important place for it. I made it so that as the scorer flies across the board, red and yellow numbers pop up. Originally these came from the scorer, but that looked ugly, so I made them randomly appear on the same line as the scorer, and it looked a lot better. This brought me to the end of day 4. I got so much work done this day, and the game was playable start to finish. The only important thing it lacked was proper scoring. Currently required score was just ignored. Day 5 was the final day of the jam. My game had to be submitted by 6 PM. I was anxious about the servers going down, which they do every single year with the GMTK game jam, so I spent the start of the day setting up my itch page early with the current build of the game, just to ensure that I would have a decent looking page ready for when I submit, and I wouldn't be rushing right at the end. After doing this, I added in proper scoring and difficulty settings for Swope. I added easy, normal, hard and an immortal difficulty where you can't lose, just in case anyone wants to see what the game has to offer without worrying about losing. I added in flying transitions for a bit more juice, and I took the time to add proper panes to all the UI in each scene. I added in a scanline filter I stole from a previous project as well for a little more juice. Then, with only about 6 hours left, I had a few options left for what to do. The colour palette of the game wasn't amazing. I was using the 8 colours from the numbers for everything, including the background, but a much better idea would be to build a few harmonious palettes from these colours and then use those instead. Also, the upgrade menu, especially the tile enhancing part, had very crude UI. And the tutorial was lackluster. If someone doesn't know how to play Minesweeper, they get told the controls and then dropped into the deep end. The difficulty and balance were also quite off. Building a roguelike like this in 96 hours was a difficult challenge. Balancing it was near impossible. All of these things would have been a better way to spend my time if I wanted to produce the best possible game, but I was here to build Minesweeper Balatro and have fun, so instead I spent the last few hours adding in the brooms. They work just like jokers in Balatro. Here you have 3 slots for brooms, and they each do something cool to help you out. The cool broom will give you a 1 in 3 chance to not take damage from a mine. The stick will make maps trigger an extra time. The dentist will give you a reward equal to your gold at the end. Clown broom will times your score by -1, so now mines and moles can be used in a different way. The vigilante broom will triple your risk at the end if you have at least 30 gilded tiles in your deck. The angry broom will give extra risk based on lost health. The operator broom makes sonars copy the risk of their adjacent tiles. Bungee brooms will give extra risk for each revealed mole. The doctor broom will give you risk times the number of brooms you have. And the strong broom will kill mines that hurt you, making them permanently ghosted. Adding the UI and systems for spawning, buying and selling brooms took a while, but adding in all the unique pouches took hardly any time at all, because I planned for effects like this from the start, and had made my code nice and modular, so broom pouches could easily be implemented. With brooms working nicely, it was about 4 PM, and I decided to export to web and submit, as exporting a Love 2D game to web is always a massive headache. It took me over an hour to get it working for Swope. I couldn't get the music to work at all, so I had to cut it out, which I knew would tank my audio score, but oh well, you live and you learn. I did some debugging after the jam, and I eventually figured out what was wrong, so at least I won't have to deal with this issue in the future. I finally submitted my game an hour before the deadline, and sure enough, just like clockwork, the servers went down and the deadline was extended by an hour. Now, I could have kept working until the deadline, or even during the extension, but I didn't want to deal with the stress of sitting there and refreshing itch trying to submit my game in time. Even after completely failing to follow my own golden formula, I felt proud of Swope. I spent about 40 hours working on it, and I honestly surprised myself with just how much I managed to get done in such a short time frame. The game definitely has some flaws, I listed them just a minute ago, but I achieved my goal of creating Minesweeper Balatro and had a lot of fun while doing so. With the jam now over, I decided to check out other people's games. There are a lot of them, and so many of them were really good. Over the week-long rating period, I rated 175 games. Some of my favourites were Unravel Quest, a game where you play as a ball of yarn you must unravel without looping on your own trail. It was so well polished and just a joy to play. Another favourite was Macabre Mandolin, a time loop puzzle game where you learn abilities in the form of songs and progress a little further through the level each loop. The puzzles were really interesting, and I love the level design of the world with all its shortcut and interlocking paths. I played a lot of time loop games this jam, and this one was my favourite out of all of them. Another one of my favourites was a game called Beat Demon. A lot of games this jam did the idea of looping a bit of music and making a beat, and this one was honestly so well done and really impressive. The beat creation had a lot of depth, and it used this mechanic of having coloured demons and a limited number of notes, so you're constantly picking up and putting down notes making this game way more engaging and deep than any other beat-making game I played this jam. I honestly could ramble for hours about all the cool games I played this jam, but I won't. Instead, I wanted to talk a bit about the games that weren't brilliant. Like I said, I played a lot of games, and a good number of them were unpolished, laggy, or sometimes even just broken, but even the most flawed submissions still had positive qualities. Even finishing a game at all in 4 days is an impressive achievement, so I left a comment on every game I played, highlighting and complimenting my favourite parts of the game. I wasn't giving unfairly good ratings, and I felt like the developer would be aware if their game had issues, and they wouldn't need me to point it out to them, but I wanted to leave a positive comment under every game I played, try and make the developer feel a little proud of their creation, and a little more motivated to stick at it and persevere at learning game dev. The reason I wanted to do this is because I got a lot of nice comments on my game. At the end of the rating period, Swope had gotten 102 ratings and 74 comments. I placed about 3000th overall, and despite the fact I knew my game was flawed and I had ignored the whole golden formula, I still had hoped my game would place higher than this, so I was quite disappointed when I first saw my rankings. But this disappointment didn't last long because of those nice comments I just mentioned. People were saying they liked the game, loved the game, congratulating me on my game, saying how impressive it was, offering constructive criticism and useful feedback. Some comments were really lovely. People saying they hope I keep making games, and even some people saying they would love to see a full game, which is probably the highest praise a jam game can get. I appreciate all these comments so much. They really made the jam such a positive experience, and it seems silly to be upset about a low ranking when so many people said such supportive things. Overall, I think I learnt a lot from this jam. I sharpened my skills by making Swope, and found some important gaps in my knowledge, like handling text, something I've been messing around with a bit since the jam. I learnt that my idea for Minesweeper Balatro works well and is fun, and a lot of people agreed with me too, especially those who were already big fans of Minesweeper. I've also learnt from what I did wrong with Swope, and the challenge that this idea faces. The game was way too hard and the tutorial didn't teach Minesweeper properly, so a lot of people fell out of their depth. Also, a lot of people didn't like suddenly dying to RNG when they were forced to do a 50-50 guess. I also feel like I gained a better perspective of game dev as a whole. I went into this jam thinking I had to rank high. I even came up with a whole golden formula on how to make a game jam game properly, and I came away from it realising that having fun and making something I think is cool is what is really important, and all the support from the community made me feel proud of my game and motivated to keep making games, and I hope that at least one of the comments I left also does the same for someone else. You know, if you think about it, the real loot was the friends we made along the way. If you've watched to the end of this video, then please consider liking and subscribing. This video is a lot bigger than my other videos and took a lot of effort to make, so I'd really appreciate it. As for future content, the next game jam I'm going to enter is Bracky's game jam at the end of this month, so look forward to seeing me post about that. Or don't if you don't want to, I guess. I also might be doing a video showing off what I've been working on recently, if that's something people would be interested in. Oh, also if you want to play Swope for yourself, then the link is in the description below. Let me know what you think of it. Like I said, I really enjoyed making it, so I hope you enjoy playing it. I plan on making more games in the future, and more videos about them, so if that's something you want to see, stick around.